Good evening and welcome everybody to the Queer Furman alumni webinar. Want to welcome all of you and appreciate you all joining us this evening. And hopefully you are going to enjoy what our faculty have to present to you today. Just want to open up and welcome you guys first, and then share a few announcements with you guys of a few events we have coming up here at Furman in the coming weeks and months. And so I'll start out first. Next week, we have the pleasure of having Judy Woodruff here on campus with us with the Win for Wednesdays event hosted by our WIN group. And so that'll be Wednesday, October 18th at 5:30 in McAllister Auditorium. Would love for you guys to join us in person. If you are not able to join us in person, we do have a virtual option for that as well. And so please check your emails. You should have gotten emails, correspondence on that. Happy to share the link as well for that in the chat group for you guys to see. Also, homecoming is coming up. If you don't already know, get excited. That is going to be at the end of this month, and that'll be the 27th through the 29th. And so a couple of things I'll mention. We do have the Out at Furman brunch. This will be, I believe, our third year having that, and that'll be also at McAllister Auditorium from 9:30 to 11 a.m. On the 28th, Saturday morning before the game. And then immediately following, we have the homecoming tailgate from 11:30 to 2 p.m. on the rugby pitch. And so hope to see you there. And then if after the end of the game, you still have some energy and you still want to party hard, we're here for you. We have the homecoming after party that evening from 7 to 10 p.m. over at Floor Field. It's going to be an absolutely amazing event. We're finishing up and planning on that, and everything points towards the best homecoming after party you've ever seen in your life. I'm just saying, all right, not tooting the alumni office horn, but the best homecoming after party you've ever seen in your life. So hopefully you guys are able to join us. I'll include a link to homecoming page as well. So if you'd like to register, please take some time and do that as well. And then finally, I'll mention, obviously, this is our ALC platform, our alumni learning community for Furman. And so we do have another event coming up at the beginning of November. On the 7th, we have alum Robert Moss, who's a 92 grad, sharing with us. So he's going to have a book discussion and a quick mixology course. So we're going to mix some drinks up. So actually, everybody who signs up for that, you will get the ingredients to the drink the ingredients for the drink you need to mix that evening. And Robert's going to take us through all of that. So if you're up for a good drink and a fun time with some alumni and hanging out, then please join us on November the 7th for that. So that's all the announcements I have. I want to go ahead and do a very short introduction of Kathleen Casey, who's new to Furman, and she'll absolutely tell you more about herself, but she will get us started off this evening. We do have, I want to mention a couple things. We do have the Q&A area. We will have some time for Q&A at the end once everybody speaks. So we will have chance for that. And so feel free to drop all your questions in the Q&A area, and we'll be happy to answer those at the end of everyone speaking. So without any further ado, Kathleen, you can take it over.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear and see me? Okay, well, I can't see you, so I'm going to assume that you can both hear and see me. So happy National Coming Out Day, everyone, and happy LGBTQ History Month as well. I am delighted to be here. As Justin mentioned, I'm new to Furman, and I also want to thank Justin and the Alumni Office for putting together this wonderful event. We're so delighted to be here. And yeah, so I actually come to you from Virginia. I was at a small liberal arts college in Virginia for the last decade. My PhD is actually from the University of Rochester, where I also earned a graduate certificate in women's and gender studies. And I was a coordinator of the Women and Gender Studies program at my last institution. And when I saw this opportunity at Furman, I jumped at it because I love the direction that Furman is moving in more generally, and also this gender studies program specifically has just been building and building and building momentum for years and is at a truly wonderful place right now. So many people have worked hard to create this program. The program may have existed in various iterations when you were a student here, The first women's studies classes we offered in the 1970s when they were new pretty much everywhere to American universities. But we offered a concentration in 1995 and then a minor in 2012 and finally a major in 2019. So the major is only 4 years old, but it is making so much progress. It is growing by leaps and bounds. When I started here in August, we had a small number of minors and majors, and we have grown by 66% in just the last 2 months. So that's really, really exciting. We got a grant right away for the next 3 years. We're going to be putting together a speaker series. This year alone, we're bringing 7 speakers from across the country to campus at Furman to talk about all kinds of issues related to the body. So we have 7 people we're bringing this year, including an artist, a poet, a historian, a psychologist, a biologist, and more. And we hope that if you're local, and if you're local, you can join us. And if you're not, we will have some opportunities to Zoom in. Not all of the speakers can be recorded, but we want to give you access as much as possible and want you to join us for this amazing year we're going to have here. The first thing we did was organize a panel in response to Barbie. We had 300 people attend it and turned about 50 away. So again, I think we're offering some really timely programming for not just students, but the whole Furman family and the Greenville community. We're starting important conversations that people need to have and want to have. The professors affiliated with the program are also doing some really amazing things. One of them just earned a $400,000 grant for her research on sex differences and nutrition. Dr. Gretchen Braun, Dr. Nick Radel, who you hear from later, both published books in the last year. And we have other faculty developing new courses. So we have a political scientist who hopes to develop an LGBTQ Politics in America course next year, which would be the first time such a course has been offered at Furman. I'm also putting together new courses on the history of clothing and style, sexuality in American history, LGBTQ history. So the opportunities we're providing are just growing exponentially, and we are super excited about that. Over the next 4 years, we plan to become a bona fide department at Furman. So my hire was a big part of that. I've also hired a new program coordinator, Sarah Cochran, who's on the call out there somewhere. Hello, Sarah. And we have just big plans for the next 4 years. And we hope that at the time that we become a true department, we will also have a physical space on campus where you can come visit us. So if you want to be part of that, I really want to hear from you. My email, I'll put it in the chat, but it's Kathleen.Casey, Kathleen.Casey 6 at Furman.edu. I want to hear from you about what your experience was like at Furman, where the WSS program was at, if it existed as a program when you were here, what kinds of experiences and courses you would have liked the opportunity to take. And we just want you to be a part of this process, this journey over the next 4 years. We think that's really important. Yeah, I want to hear from you about anything, whether it's coursework, program building, whether you want to jump on this moving train with us and help us develop and raise funds. We're going to be, we're in the process of developing T-shirts and stickers and all kinds of swag. And we will also be at homecoming. So we hope to see you there as well. Come find our tent if you can. Yeah, I guess that's it for now. I'm going to kick it over to Dr. Jeff Makala, who has some other really exciting announcements about what Furman has been doing in collections over the last few years. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Makala, and I tell people that I have the best job at the university. I'm the Associate Director for Special Collections and University Archivist. I get to build collections that support our teaching mission here at Furman, research collections as well on occasion, and I get to link up and connect with my fellow faculty members and their students in classes, for symposia, seminar, all sorts of opportunities, fellowships, and things that we offer. So I have an intimate connection with the teaching and learning enterprise here through our collections, through our services, through our facilities and special collections and archives. I'm going to share my screen right now because I've got a PowerPoint that is much more visually interesting than looking at me. Here we go. Okay. So this is a version of the talks we gave at the Furman Showcase last spring at the Queer at Furman Showcase. So you've been hearing a lot about Clearly Furman from the development office and the alumni office and our capital campaign folks. But I am going to take a suggestion from Dr. Nick Radel, who's here tonight as well, and I'm going to call this talk Queerly Furman, Building and Teaching with the Queer Zine collection. And the image you can see right here is part of the exhibit of queer zines that we did in 2022 in our gallery on the second floor of the library. Richard Furman, a portrait, our namesake, getting a little bit nonplussed expression at the surrounding queer zines that are populating the cases beneath him and to his immediate left. You can see he's getting some serious side eye there in the upper right corner from the little book of big black bears. By design, that was a little bit of fun. And Richard is kind of, yeah, I'm sure spinning in his grave now that we are no longer Baptist and there are queer pagan zines and all sorts of other things in the collection. The curriculum changes. We're a 200-year-old university. Our collections change to reflect teaching and research interests. So I have no problems at all saying that right now we are building one of the biggest queer zine collections in any academic library in the country. I can say that with a little bit of credulous authoritativeness, let's say, right? So this all started for me when I got here over 8 years ago, building up and shoring up collections that were underrepresented. And so I started building LGBTQIA plus collections going back to the 19th century and early 20th centuries, wherever possible. And developing those going forward to again, to support teaching and learning across disciplines, across departments, across subject matter for classes, and for students to interact with the real thing, not with facsimiles or PDFs or things on screens, but the real objects of cultural heritage that we all have built upon. And so some of these things are up here right now. We've also been building substantial collections of gay and lesbian and queer periodicals, big runs of One magazine, which was the first gay men's magazine in America going back to the 1950s, and The Ladder, which was the first open lesbian publication in America from the late 1950s. I'm almost at comprehensiveness now for those runs of the periodicals. And going into the 70s as well, a lot of periodicals in several languages. We're very Anglo-centric, of course, but French and Spanish as well from different parts of Europe and Central South America as well. Coupled with, in this case, on the right-hand side, some of the Furman Stands with Pride gear that one can find in the bookstore today. But I want to go and talk a little bit about the zine collection, which is the point, the new stuff that's in. This happened in 2019. A rare and antiquarian book dealer friend of mine in London put up on Instagram, or maybe it was Twitter at that point, I'm not sure, put up on social media that they were doing some buying trips to the west coast of the US and around Europe and building up a collection of zines that were broadly under the umbrella of queer LGBTQIA+. And when I saw that and looked at a couple of the teaser images that they posted, I thought that this was a great opportunity. So I asked them to have first right of refusal for when the collection was ready for prime time and ready to be offered. And so a couple months later, I was offered it and we made the machinations and it worked. and 2 huge boxes with 300 zines arrived in London sometime in the fall of 2019. And the first thing we did was lay them all out in the reading room by title. And you can see a range of things here. So zines, little magazines, fanzines, art publications, they run the gamut of types of cultural production, right? Some things are quick and dirty, photocopied, on someone's lunch break, cut and pasted and brought out there. Others are very slick, perfect bound, 4-color printing, offset litho from a InDesign background and a commercial publishing house, and everything in between. So some of them are one-off, just they're out there and they're thrown out there into the world. Others exist as periodicals, and new issues keep coming out over a period of time. And the collection did run the gamut. But when we laid everything out, we saw how they all talked to one another and spoke to one another, and we made connections between them very readily and said, oh, okay, we can taxonomize and categorize everything, but the way these folks were producing these materials and reacting to the cultural and historical and political realities of their time, going back in this case to the late 1970s, the whole was greater than the sum of the parts, right? That's the takeaway. And that launched a serious collecting interest now in these materials that we're just growing and growing and growing. So themes emerged: sad gay vampire poems and queer horror, of course. Queer vampires are a thing, right? A trope. A lot of people write about queer, lesbian, gay vampires. So they emerge. These things come out. There are angry AIDS era, ACT UP influenced, sardonic periodicals like Diseased Pariah News, which came out of the HIV positive gay men's community in San Francisco in the late 80s, early 90s. Angry material that reflects the political realities of its time. This is a new one in for me. This comes out of the downtown New York scene on the Lower East Side in the early 80s. All the people in accounting just love to get my invoices now that they have to pay for things called dumb fucker. But yeah, it's there. But this one I got because there's an essay in it by the important New York artist David Wojnarowicz. And so we started to exhibit them as well. Right when in 2019, again, when I was consciously trying to build up collections for the new major, I did an exhibit in our gallery called 4 Centuries of Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies Materials, in parens awaiting student research projects, which included some of the zines. And then in 2022, we did a full-off zine extravaganza with a lot of the collection out in our gallery, with this wonderful poster on the right that was designed by Rick Jones in the Digital Collection Center. The poster itself has become a little collector's item on campus, and it graces many a faculty door in Furman Hall now. We can get you PDFs and you can print it out if you'd like. But again, it reflects the range of the collection a little bit. It was certainly the most colorful exhibit poster we've ever done in the library, and gotten out there all over the campus bulletin boards and on our social media and our websites. So it is there, and it's available to people. We did a hands-on Queer Zine viewing party to mark the collection. We invited the Furman Pride Alliance and some of our networks in, and just had a fun night looking at these zines and thinking them through. These are some shots of the exhibit. I tried to put minimal front end kind of interpretation, but I grouped some things by topics. So I don't know that there's an overarching theme that emerges. I'm trying to make the collection as wide-ranging as possible. We have 5 continents represented. I'm working on a 6th continent, at least a dozen different languages. If there's any focuses that are consciously being done, I'd say it's looking at trans zines, zines by trans folks, and then also zines by queer folks of color, to try to really amplify that a little bit more consciously. Let's see, the left side is all about body image zines. The right image is all quarantine zines, so zines that were produced from 2020 on by various people in lockdown around the world when they had a lot of time on their hands and they started making things. And that has continued, of course. And then every topic under the sun. There are queer Satanist zines. There are queer nerd zines. There are queer Jewish zines. There's a wonderful queer opera zine called Parterre Box. And everything else as well. Queer vegetarian zines and bicycling zines and everything. And it's a wonderful collection. There's some swag too. We have some tote bags. We have buttons and pins and stickers and all sorts of postcards and things in the collection coming in with everything as well. And there's a lot of queer cat scenes. Yeah, that's just because, and that's great. Again, I get invoices for Butt Poet and the people in accounting. Look at me, funny. And then just this month, literally in my office on my desk right now, a couple zines from the 90s. Aunt Fran was a self-professed dyke-core, hardcore music zine from the mid-90s. Roller Derby was a feminist zine from middle of the 90s. And then I just got a big group of queer pagan zines from New York City, a big run of them from the mid-90s as well. So they're just new in. So we're adding to the collection. It's up over... It started with about 300, we're up over 800 now, and I can say with some authority that it's one of the biggest in any academic library in the country. And I will stop right there and turn things over to my colleague, Nashieli Marcano. We can talk about zines later if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. And Justin, are we sharing the link or should I share the screen?
Just share the link.
Okay, let me go ahead and share the screen. Can you all see the timeline that I'm showing on my screen? Yes, okay. Okay, thank you. All right, so thank you, Jeff. I thought I had the best job in the world, but I'm happy to be part of this sphere, no, of building collections that are meaningful and that are making an impact in our community. And I just came back from Miami, where I got a few more queer scenes that will add some Latin flair to our collection. So I can't wait to share that with you. Now, this timeline, the LGBTQIA plus at Furman timeline, it's a project that was conceived by Jeff Makala and Nick Radel, who worked together on the concept for some showcase that would speak about the stories and the events that advance the rights and the experiences of this community at Furman. And then after this initial thoughts were worked out, I was approached to come up with a digital product, a digital resource that would pull together artifacts, stories, events that speaks to the more comprehensive history of Furman as an institution and its culture. And so this is based on, let me minimize this here. This is constructed using story maps. And you can see that you can scroll down to view the whole timeline, or you can jump through the ages, no, through the years of interest. And this is being built with an assemblage of photographs, newspaper articles, magazine articles, yearbook articles, and other ephemeral materials that were created by, for, and about Furman's queer history. And we can trace this story back to 1970s with the publication in the Paladin in 1970 of a Talk a Topic, a panelist session. And I just learned recently that this Talk a Topic is sort of the predecessor of today's CLP's programming. So this particular topic was focused on homosexuality. And you can, click on the buttons that I've included here to read the full article that will direct you to our digital collections for the full text. And if we scroll down, we have here Robert McLean, an alumnus, beloved alumnus from 1965, who starred in a groundbreaking film entitled A Very Natural Thing. You can find more information about the film by using these buttons here. Also, you can take a look at the quill panel that was made in honor of McLean for the National AIDS Memorial Project. And also I have pulled together some photographs that I acquired from the Department of Theater with some of McLean's performances. I just wanted to celebrate his legacy to the university. And so we wanted to create something that was exciting, that was welcoming, and it felt like a collective effort. So after I created the prototype, Jeff and I shared that prototype with the WGSS community. We were consulting with them, but also sort of extracting some sticky points about the history and to fill some gaps. And that really generated a beautiful dialogue via email among folks from that community. And so one good example is this Indigo Girls poster, which Special Collections and Archives we have here. And one of our professors, Dr. Sarah Worth, was posing here with the Indigo Girls. And she gladly shared this picture of this moment with us. So we are building this timeline right now with everyone who would like to contribute with artifacts that can just give more context to our history. And so let's see what else. I don't want to show you the whole timeline because I want you to explore it. So I'm going to jump. Let's see, 1990. We have some great writing that I wanted to highlight by Furman alumni, such as Courtney Sullivan, who wrote on topics about homosexuality and the realities of homosexuality on campus and the stigma behind it. Also, articles by Russ Gore, who shed light on critical issues related to the AIDS crisis. But also I've included some responses to those articles. So there's that controversy happening throughout this history. And of course, you can read all these full text articles and messages on our digital collections. I'm going to jump to 1996. Here we have curricular type of milestones, and we have the first gender studies queer theory course that was taught at Furman, where Dr. Magdalena Saborowska and Dr. Nick Radel developed the course through a PEW Foundation grant. And I have here a copy of the syllabus that Dr. Radel shared with me, and which will be available digitally if you want to take a closer look. Let's see, 1997. More curricular milestones. We have the Women's Studies program becoming the first interdisciplinary minor. So we can read about that particular moment, as well as the formation of groups like FLAG, the Friends of Lesbians and Gays, which was formed earlier, but there was a controversy over an event from which they were excluded. I invite you to read that article. I wanted to jump to, let's see, 1998. I love this picture. Is probably my favorite item of the timeline. This really showcased that we came into this from a place of love. And here we have Dr. Scott Henderson, professor of education, and the late and the great Richard E. Pryor, associate professor of classics. And they became the first openly gay couple to teach at Furman. And I just love this photograph. I also love a publication entitled The Dialectic. Is Furman University's monthly journal of opinion. And there were a couple of issues related to the topic of homosexuality, sexuality that we want to showcase. And there were contributions by professors and by students as well. Let's see what else we can show you. We're going to jump to 2001. We also come from a place of respect and advocacy, so it's important to remark when Furman offered benefits to domestic partners. That was a big deal to our community, and we wanted to mark that on the timeline. Let's see, 2008. We have here Dr. Rogers Need, more curricular milestones with his course on religion and sexuality, now sexuality and Christian theologies, offered for the first time in 2008. And let's jump to 2012. More curricular milestones. We have the Introduction to Queer Theory, created by Dr. Vincent Hausman and Nick Radel. This became the first LGBTQIA plus studies course offered at Furman. And let's see if I have another year that I want to highlight. Dr. Nick Radel has done incredible things for the community to flourish. And we want to highlight a lot of the efforts that he has made in collaboration with other folks to create new paths, for recruiting and making the program grow and retaining faculty. And if you go through these years, the more current, more recent times will have more content, of course. As Kathleen mentioned, the program is increasing exponentially, so this will be reflected in the timeline. So as we progress through the years, we'll have more data points or historical moments to celebrate. I'm going to jump to 2017, where you can see special events created by students, like drag shows. The 2015 was the year where the first drag show happened, and we're still trying to locate the poster that promoted that event. So if you would know about that, contact us. We have the Safe Zone program relaunching. We have Furman Pride Alliance forming, and you can find more information about this group by clicking on this button for the yearbook. And let's see if I can, let me go to 2020. Again, we have Dr. Nick Radel reflecting on Furman's gay past with the publication of an article in the Gay and Lesbian Review. You can take a look at that piece here as well. And folks, students who have been courageous and come out as being part of the community, I would like you to get to know them through these links. And let's just jump to the future here. But 2022, we have Emmy winners who have done outstanding writing, and we want to celebrate that because they're part of the community. And here we are, to the point where Jeff was discussing with the Queer Zine collection. It's such a beautiful poster. I wanted to include that, and you can learn more about the exhibit in this link. We're going to jump to this year, because we have, as of spring of this year, Furman Pride Alliance has one of the largest student membership, about 90 members among our many student organizations on campus, and that's something to celebrate. We have more CLPs taking place. Recently, we had during the summer, Dr. Radel and Dr. Touche Kayal leading a Queer Histories San Francisco MAEX course, which was a success. And here's the beautiful poster. And this book on the right is a recent publication by Scott, Colors of the Rainbow, Voices from Furman's LGBTQIA+ community, which was published back in June. So congratulations on that. And we're celebrating the arrival of Kathleen Casey, of course, the successful CLP on Unpacking Barbie, And the latest, we have Sarah Cochran joining us as WGSS program coordinator. So this is not the end. I welcome you to contribute to this timeline, to fill gaps, to enrich this by emailing us. And I'm going to leave you here with the email us is specialcollections@furman.edu or nmarcano@furman.edu. I'm going to stop sharing. Thank you. I'm going to give it to Nick Radel now. Are you with us, Nick?
I am sorry. I thought that Scott was next. Am I wrong? I'm ready to go.
Yes, you are. You are on, Nick.
Oh, I'm on. Okay, good. I don't really know what to say after that wonderful timeline and all that Nashieli has mentioned in it in terms of the sort of history of Furman and Furman LGBTQ issues. And I also have to say, since we're on a webinar and I can't really see who's here, I fear that I may be talking to or lecturing the very people who produce the history that I'm about to say something about. There may be any number of people, but I agreed to talk just a bit about really what the history of LGBTQ issues at Furman has been. And I'm going to do something that may surprise some people who know me. I'm going to be relatively positive about it. Because while I think Furman was in some ways slow to embrace and pick up LGBTQ issues and LGBTQ curriculum and to really think seriously about the role of queer people here, the truth of the matter is that as Furman did do it, it came to me relatively easy, or it seems to me relatively easily, and with a great deal of support from everyone from the administration on down through many of the students. And I think those of you who know the history will know that the gay student group here was founded in 1991. Really, it began its progress here in 1991, and that was the same year that Furman was breaking from the Baptists. And it was in that year that a group of students, especially Courtney Sullivan, who Nashieli has mentioned her fine writing from that period in the Paladin, Courtney Sullivan and Carl Sullivan and Randall Cook, Randall David Cook, the playwright, all sort of approached me and asked if we could put together a gay student group, which they thought it was high time that we had at Furman. And it occurred to me that because we were in this sort of struggle with the South Carolina Baptist Convention to break from that convention and its ties with Furman, historical ties with Furman, that this was a great occasion because we could sort of slide in at a moment when the administration's attentions were elsewhere. And that's precisely what we did. So in the spring of 1992, my suggestion to students had been that we should put together a fully formed group, think of a constitution, think of a rationale for our existence, and present it to Dr. John Johns, as if it were really a fait accompli. And that's exactly what we did, though. The other sort of, I think, brilliant strategy we created was to suggest to him that, do a little hand wringing and sort of saying we realized what a difficult position this put him in with the Baptists, and what could we do to help, and could we possibly help him at all? And his answer was, you could help me by delaying the introduction of this new student group by a semester until I sort out the Baptist mess. And then he said, and if you do, I'll support you 100%, which was a surprise from a man like Johnny Johns, who everyone thought of as a kind of old-fashioned Baptist boy. But he was indeed supportive of us. And the group moved in the, I think it was the fall of 1992, in front of AFS, where it began to seek money. And got an overwhelming, really, student support. I don't want to make it sound like it was all easiness. It wasn't. There were long discussions in AFS and and students, wringing their hands about what did this mean about Furman if we brought in a gay group, a gay student group. But finally, under the direction of Shannon Wilkerson, who was the president of AFS that year, the group was legitimately constituted at Furman, and we were given money to support activities. So, surprisingly easily, a gay student group came to Furman. And, I think there are many reasons for that. There are ways to think about it. Some of it, I think, probably in some ways has to do with that Baptist tradition that we had at Furman, which in some ways, I know it's always dealt with me, or at least early on, it dealt with me by imagining that, that I was assuredly going to hell. But after all, it was my relationship with God, and it was my business to work out with God himself, and that they should have very little to do with it. And certainly that allowed me to do things in my classroom and to teach works in my classroom that I might not otherwise have done. At any rate, over the years, to get back to the student group, its name changed, it's morphed several times. Initially, it was called FLAG, Friends of Lesbians and Gays. Its mission was conceived as entirely social and educational, and we really stressed that it was primarily an educational group and a social group. And over the years, I think that that agenda has stuck largely. It's educational and social. The group has gone through a number of changes in name. It went from FLAG to QSA, the Queer Student Alliance. And from the Queer Student Alliance, it then moved under one of the presidents and directors, Isaac Arnold, to EROS, Encouraging Respect of Sexualities. I thought that was a little too precious, but Isaac liked it, and the group was very successful, I think, at staging events and bringing in speakers and managing CLP events. And then finally, it's moved to the Furman Pride Alliance, where it is now. I'm hoping I'm not missing a name change in there, but I think that's relatively the correct order of things. One of the other things I would say about the history of Furman, and in some ways this is reflected in the timeline, the LGBTQ plus timeline, is that the years 2010 and 2012 were really signal and important years at Furman. And a number of, again, administrators were helpful in those years. And I'm thinking really of Tom Casey, but especially John Beckford, who, in spite of being a dean and a person I had many sort of disagreements with about policy, nevertheless was a very strong supporter of LGBTQIA issues at Furman. It was under his watch that we really formed first the LGBTQ. It was called initially the LGBTQ Issues Committee, and I think Dr. Henderson will talk about that committee in his talk and its ongoing work. So that was initially proposed by Dean Casey, Tom Casey, and then later made into a permanent group by Dr. Beckford. Dr. Beckford was he was also instrumental in helping us get at the time what was a women's center, and at that same time we also deemed and labeled that women's center the lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender resource center. So and we ensured that space was given prominent place in Furman Hall, where it stays today, and is marked very clearly. It was something we thought really was going on in those years, is that there wasn't enough representation. There wasn't enough sort of notice that there were actually queer people at Furman. And so we were very careful to make sure that the sign on the front door at the end of Furman Hall said LGBTQ Resource Center. Dr. Beckford supported that. He gave us money. He gave us terrific furniture and money to buy books, and all of that is still in place. And and much loved by the Furman Pride Alliance, who keep worrying. I think Dr. Casey could tell us when she first came, the students were worried that women's and gender studies might take that space away, but they were given a firm commitment that would not happen. So, that's still there and still operative. The other thing that happened in those years was the women's and gender studies minor agreed to add sexuality studies to the minor. So it became women's, gender, and sexuality studies in those years as well. And that came about after a very long discussion about whether or not sexuality studies was consistent with women's studies and even gender studies. And with a great deal of worry about exactly where would sexuality studies end up in a triply combined department. But as Dr. Casey has observed, it's ended up very well, and we've had a very good and productive relationship with women's studies and gender studies and sexuality studies. There's a tremendous overlap in those three areas, and I think the WGS major, minor, and now department has been very helpful and instrumental in creating that sort of allyship between and among us all. Let me look at my notes and see. Oh, the one other thing I would talk about is that we don't talk about too much, but CLP has been a thorn in the side of the student group since its initial founding, because over and over again, student groups would be, or student programs would be dismissed or harassed or demanded to sort of produce extra evidence by the CLP committee. But all in all, overall, the CLP committee in all of the years before we had sexuality studies, served as an alternate curriculum for Furman. And I think the queer student group and the various professors who are interested in sexuality and gender studies ensured that avenue of curricular activity was really exploited carefully and well. So all in all, I just want to sort of corroborate that the very good work that we're seeing going on now has long been on the agenda, has long been working out, and we are now really the beneficiaries of a long history of sort of positive apprehension and comprehension of LGBTQIA people at Furman. So that's all I have to say. And, I'm happy you're all here. I long to know who is here. So please email me at some point if you were here. And then I think now I should turn things over to, I think it's Scott, Dr. Henderson now.
Thank you, Nick. I've been checking things off of my list because my wonderful colleagues have covered them. So I will be brief. As a consequence, I'm going to claim to have the very best job because I get to work with these people on the screen, and I could not be luckier. I am a member of and a past chair of something called the LGBTQ+ Affairs Committee. I want to give a shout out to Nick. He was the initial chairperson of that committee. It's actually now a subcommittee of Furman's DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. It is a presidential appointed committee, so it has both gravitas and the support of President Davis. The current co-chairs are Adi Dubash and Caitlin Bagley-Sepsi, who are doing a marvelous job. The committee functions primarily to advocate for LGBTQ faculty and staff at Furman. We are both, or I should say, we are mostly proactive, although we occasionally have to be reactive. We admittedly do have a lighter side. We've recently had 2 social events for LGBTQ+ faculty and staff. One of the first things that the current iteration of this committee did was to create the Out at Furman webpage. That is the name of a webpage, not a group, but it has photographs and profiles of faculty and staff at Furman who identify as LGBTQ. That allows individuals who are thinking about applying or who have applied to Furman to check us out, to see if they, as someone who identifies or not as LGBTQ plus, can find a community here or find an institution that shares their values. Big shout out to Justin, Allison Foy, the alumni office, and also Patrick Bridges, if he is listening. The big shout out goes to them because Justin's already mentioned we're having the 3rd annual LGBTQ plus alumni homecoming brunch, which anyone here can register to attend. It will be on the steps of McAllister Auditorium in full view of everyone and anybody, which is, I think, a real sign of the times. The committee has also begun an LGBTQ plus ambassador program that will provide faculty and staff and students to speak to directly one-on-one in confidence, to speak to prospective students, faculty, or staff. Our committee also now has the use of funds, which are, it's not a huge amount, but it's in the thousands of dollars. I didn't say hundreds of thousands, but in the thousands of dollars that we can delegate for LGBTQ programming and student assistance, primarily through a relatively new office called the Center for Inclusive Communities. We are about to launch a housing survey of all students to see what their LGBTQ plus housing experience has been so far on campus. As a couple of my colleagues have mentioned, we are big into swag now. As you saw in the Furman University bookstore in full view are Furman Pride caps. I think the noise that lots of people heard when those caps were put on display was the sound of hell freezing over. Also, the t-shirts, we have started Pride Monday, which is all faculty, staff, and students who have Pride t-shirts wear them the first Monday of each month to show their support of the LGBTQ plus community on campus. As was kindly shown, I've run out of copies of this book, which is great, but the reason I'm giving it a second plug is because this book, Colors of the Rainbow, Voices from Furman University's LGBTQIA plus community. The reason I'm showing that is because 3 members of our committee have submissions in that volume, and Nick has 2, even though he's not on the committee right now, but 2 wonderful submissions. That book is available in the bookstore. It is currently on or in an LGBTQ plus book display, which is to recognize LGBTQ History Month. You can also get it on Amazon. I will mention 2 other things. One is, as some of the folks on this webinar might know, Furman University just received the 2023 Nonprofit Organization of the Year Award by Greenville's LGBTQ plus Chamber of Commerce. That was a huge honor that provided Furman support of our LGBTQ plus faculty, staff, and students, a great deal of visibility. And the second thing I will mention, and I don't think I'm going out on a limb here, if you think what you've heard on this webinar is great, if you think this is a great direction that Furman is going in, let Furman know that. I think all of us can unfortunately say that those who don't think we're necessarily going in the right direction in terms of our LGBTQ plus community. People who don't think that's the right direction, they will make their voice heard. They do make their voice heard. So please thank Furman for the support that it is giving us. It is well-deserved. I am throwing it back to Justin now, and I hope to hear from those of you who have been a part of this webinar.
Thank you, Dr. Henderson. Thank you, Dr. Henderson. Yeah, just want to say thank you to everyone, all of our panelists this evening for giving of your time and sharing with us. I don't see it. We had a couple of questions come in while you guys were talking, and those have been answered. I don't see any others. And so if there are no questions from the group here, I want to offer up one more thank you to you guys. And I will mention to the group in the chat group, I did place links to those events I mentioned at the front end. At the top of that is a link to support LGBTQIA plus initiatives and programming at Furman. So please click that link. I think the other thing Dr. Henderson mentioned is really a great way to support is just to let Furman know, right, how much you appreciate, but also how much you want to see things continue. I also put everyone's email in there, so you can email everyone who's on our panel this evening directly to see how you can be actively involved. And I think what's important is, right, you all have lived the experience at Furman, and so paving the way for those students who are living the experience now and making it a lot easier. And so I hear throughout our time this evening, I hear progress, and Furman has come a long way, but there is still a ways to go. So it takes all of us. It takes faculty, staff, alumni, students, parents, the likes to make it happen. And so your support is greatly appreciated. One question came in: what is the best way to let Furman know our support? Who do we email? I'll leave that to maybe one of the panelists who may have a better idea than myself.
Well, since I was the one who had to open this can of worms, I think anyone and everyone, provost, deans, members of the board of trustees, the president, I will tell you, President Davis has been relentless in her support of LGBTQ plus faculty, staff, and students. So if anyone tells you who told you to email them, just tell them Nick Radel. That's spelled R-A-D-E-L.
Absolutely. Just don't say Justin Brown. I haven't been here long enough. I only got a year under my belt. Let me get a couple more years, and then maybe you can throw my name out there. So again, thank you guys. I think I don't see any more questions. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you guys, again, giving your time this evening and sharing your experience, your stories, your work with myself and even all of those who have joined us this evening. And thank all of you out there who have joined us as well. So if nothing else, everyone have a great evening. And please reach out and let us know how you would love to support and let us know the things you would love to see happen at Furman.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. It's been a privilege.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you all. Good night.